but they got the knowledge you crave. Burn and fire. Hard hitting insight gonna make you win. Listen up closely, let the games begin. Top pick sleepers every week I spin. The FF universe here to help you win. The fantasy football universe.
What is up? Welcome into, so far, the most important day of fantasy football 2025. Of course, it is the quarterfinal matchups kicking off Thursday. So hopefully you didn't start against Kyle Pitts. Hopefully you didn't start against Bijan Robinson. Instead, have those guys, or at least are starting from ground zero here. But we need to know exactly who we are going to start and who we are going to sit today in order to win those all-important fantasy playoff matchups. So thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't been here before, I'm Jeremy Schulman at FF_Rebel. If you have, welcome back. Please feel free to throw any and every question that you have about start, sit decisions here in the chat. And then we'll get into it in just about 2 minutes. The first thing is we have a Discord. In fact, in the chat on YouTube is where I'm dropping that link. Feel free to join up. You can get questions answered, not just today, but every single day of the week. We're practically 24/7 since I'm over here in Europe. Go ahead and join up. Again, that link is in the chat. Just copy and paste it into your browser, and you can join up to get that fantasy insight for yourself. Secondly, if you haven't used Fast Draft, go ahead and use it. Promo code FFU, first time deposit match up to $25. And of course, we have a QR code up here that will send you over to TikTok. That will get you in touch with Jesse Moeller and the practically thousands of questions. We average about 2K comments over there. So it's very busy. It's possible your questions don't get answered over there, but at least you get tons of insight from Jesse over there. Head over there. Come back over here, get your questions answered on 2 different sites, and hear what we all have to say about these guys for the Week 15 matchups. Okay, so while I wait for your questions to drop in the chat, here are a couple of things of note that are happening in terms of actives and inactives for Week 15. Guys who are active this week, Roma Dunze. Don't really want to play him. Don't really trust Caleb Williams, and you probably have much better options, and you've been getting by at this point without him. In many cases, I am not trusting Roma Dunze. Similarly, I'm not trusting Parker Washington, although this does kind of put a damper on the rest of the Jags passing game weapons. We like the consolidated tree, but BTJ has been more involved the last couple of weeks. Jacoby Myers keeps catching touchdowns, but all those guys get a slight downtick because Parker Washington is active. De'Ami Brown, I believe, played last week. He's not necessarily on this list. He's not, again, these aren't people that I'm necessarily worried about for fantasy, but Parker Washington could come in and get 8 to 10 targets again. He's not a guy I'm playing, but at the same time, he's a guy that concerns me for the other pass catchers, especially Brenton Strange, who has been pretty reliable over the last 3 weeks. Other active players, Deebo Samuel, we're happy to see that in a great matchup, especially with Zach Ertz out. We know Terry McLaurin can help open up things underneath. I like both of those guys this week. Josh Palmer, not really excited about that, but Gabe Davis is out, so maybe Palmer sees a little bit of run. I don't think you're going to need to start him in a pinch. Cedric Tillman doesn't really do anything for me. Shadur Sanders balled out last week, but I don't know. I'm not going to hang my hat on that just yet. Inactives, probably more important. Guys to get out of your lineup. Nick Chubb, get him out of your lineup. Get Woody Marks into your lineup. Fantastic matchup for him. Chris Rodriguez is out. JCM, I'm not in love with him. I think Jeremy McNichols can be sneaky. But JCM, if you have to play him in a pinch as an RB2, you got a loaded wide receiver core, and they're all filling out your flexes. I have a few teams like that. If you got to play JCM or McNichols, you got to do what you got to do. Don't love it, but Chris Rodriguez is out. So most importantly with that, get him out of your lineup. QJ is out, and Trent McDuffie on the other side is out. That's really interesting to me for Keenan Allen. I think if you have to play him, maybe your feeling of safety and floor for Keenan Allen is slightly elevated in this game because of those two inactives. But he's not someone I'm dying to play. If you have to, though, maybe you feel a little bit better about it. And then Rashad Bateman is out. This is wheels up for every other Ravens pass catcher. Of course, it's Mark Andrews. it's even more so Isaiah Likely than it was just 12 hours ago. And Zay Flowers should not donut you. I think he was one reception for 4 yards 2 weeks ago against Cincy. I think they figure it out. I think everybody's a go here on the Ravens. It's playoff time. We need that push, and the Ravens need to beat the Cincinnati Bengals as well. I'm not sure what the percentages are. I know they're slim to none for both the Ravens and the Bengals, but I do know if they lose this game, whichever team loses this game has no chance. Last one, and this is kind of a sneaky, maybe under the radar run. Two defensive players for the Buffalo Bills are out this week. That's Terrell Bernard, their starting middle linebacker. He's been off and on all season with injuries, but when he is in there, he is excellent at kind of stretching the field, being able to stop the run, and he's pretty decent in coverage as well. The fact that he's out not only is wheels up for Travion Henderson. He was already my running back 7 on the week. I feel very, very happy with him in my lineups this week. But it's also interesting for Hunter Henry. It's interesting for Steph Diggs, who could work over the middle, because Christian Benford is also out. Benford has looked great in spurts, so that's really nice that these two guys are out. I already thought that New England was going to put up enough points, but now I feel like they're going to be able to put up more points than kind of normal, probably get into the 30s. That could lead itself to a shootout. We know Josh Allen is capable. I do not think that these teams are, both of them, are where they were back in week 5. I would expect this game to hit the over. I'm not exactly certain what the over is. In fact, I can check that right now. I'm not sure if this is up to date, but it is ESPN. And the over-under right now for this game here is 49.5, pretty high. I might bet the over in this game. I think both of these teams can score 25 points. I think we're looking at 28 to 30, kind of that type of game. So we'll see how it goes. But those are the things you need to know about the inactives. And if you have any questions that reference it, we'll talk about it. I know we have a few weather situations too, so that's what we got to get into. Let's start out by talking about Mike and his AJB issue. Yeah, adding Ladd into the mix here because of the QJ inactive situation here. Of course, Amarian Hampton is active. Kamani Vidal, those guys will be heavily utilized, I would say. We know we have Gadsden there, but Justin Herbert with his broken hand, it didn't seem to affect him too much last week. He was throwing stiff arms with that thing. But against Kansas City, man, it's just so tough. 4 inches of snow, maybe more in Philly. I don't care, man. I get it with Ladd, but Ladd just hasn't been seeing the targets. Here's what I'm going to say about Ladd McConkey. And let me just pull up his stats to reiterate it. So this is actually full PPR. I usually go half PPR because that's where my rankings are due to Fantasy Pros, but I'm looking at full PPR here. In the last, we can go 6 weeks, which is 5 games. He's been the wide receiver 37, 7, 65, 20, and 84. The only time he's approaching those elite wide receiver numbers is when he's catching a touchdown. Otherwise, his target numbers in those 5 games, 6, 6, 4, 6, 5. That's not the type of volume we're accustomed to seeing from Ladd McConkey, especially since before week 9, he was like top 5 in the league in targets. That just hasn't been the case over the last month and a half here for Ladd. So I'm concerned about that. On the flip side, Mike, I know you're a huge Eagle fan, and I know you know about AJ Brown and what he's been doing for fantasy, but I think sometimes the narrative, especially with Philly losing, being 8-5, oh no, is Dallas going to take the division? I think the narrative has been a little overblown on AJ Brown. Listen to this over the last month: 11, 10, 12, and 13 targets for AJB. Full PPR wide receiver, 21, 5, 1, and 17. He has not been beyond a wide receiver 2. And when he scores the touchdown, he is a wide receiver 1. I don't care about the weather. I know Jalen Hurts struggles, but I think that's going to be more of a reason, because especially with the offensive line struggles in Saquon, that's going to be more of a reason to implement a shorter passing game. Hurts can complete them. AJB will run some slants. This, I think, hurts more so Devonta Smith than anything else. Smith has been getting the targets, but he's not necessarily converting because his targets are more so downfield. Give me AJB. I get it, Mike. If you're feeling squeamish, obviously you are because you're asking the question. RJ Harvey's not a bad option. I just don't expect him to have the ceiling that AJB has, and I think AJB still has the floor. So I'm rolling with Brown here, but I get it. Ladd for me is buried, and he's going to stay that way. Frosty, what is up? BTJ or Watson? Yeah, that's a good debate. Remember, we just said at the top, though, that Parker Washington is back. Parker Washington had seen elite target volumes when healthy, and that was with BTJ in the game. Now, BTJ's looked good the last couple of weeks, but a lot of that has been with Parker Washington just not necessarily as healthy. When Parker Washington has 3 games, 11, 10, and 9 targets. In the last 6 games, he's had targets of 10, 9, 7, 2, a weird one, 7. And then last week he went out very early with injury. So back in this game, ready to play against a awful Indianapolis secondary. BTJ can certainly get there. We hope he does. And I get it because Watson has the issue with Pat Surtain. I'm just not so scared of that. I get it. It's something that, Pat Surtain's number one. He's looked human since he's been back from injury. Number 2, Christian Watson has been balling out, and Jordan Love has been balling out by association with Christian Watson coming back. We had Jaden Reed come back into the fold last week. I think this could be more of a Reed-heavy target game because of the way that Denver covers. The problem is that Christian Watson's been so damn good. Over the last month, 5, 7, 10, and 4 targets. The target volume hasn't been there, but the touchdowns have. Wide receiver 6, wide receiver 34, wide receiver 12, and wide receiver 6 in full PPR leagues. He is scoring a ton. The best thing about Christian Watson is they are not afraid, Jordan Love especially, to utilize him in the red zone. Josh Jacobs not fully healthy. Emmanuel Wilson not fully healthy. Will these guys even fully play is the question. I think in the red zone, Christian Watson has a really, really good really good path to score a touchdown. Brian Thomas, on the other hand, whether it was health, whether it was integration, whether it was a trust issue, he's been looking better, but the targets are still not there over his last 4 games, 2 before the injury, 2 after, 7, 5, 3, and 6 targets. Now, he got there last week, but just 3 for 87, so he had to break a big one. He hasn't on the season, albeit just one time, the only time he scored in a game this year. Brian Thomas has not been more than wide receiver 23, and that was last week against Indy. So against the Jets, I misspoke against the Jets. I think this is a tough spot here to get all of these pass catchers going. And you got the 2 backs, man. So this could get out of hand quickly with Brady Cook. I'm sitting BTJ for Watson, and I'm not going to be that upset about it. I'm going Christian Watson pretty easily. Yeah. I get it. This is exactly how I feel. Dynasty Dog, Mike, what is up again? Start 3 in PPR, full tight end premium. You got to love that. And 0.25 per rush. You want the volume, so you want the Rico in there for sure. Rome, I'm sitting down, man. It's definitely Rome. Wandale is my wide receiver 14 this week. He's the only game in town at the wide receiver position. You got Theo Johnson. You got the 2 backs, and that's about it. Darius Slayton, maybe. Isaiah Hodgins, maybe. But we know Dart runs. But we know we trust Wandale. So Wandale, for me, I think eats underneath against this awful Washington defense. They're horrific. The Giants, if they have one thing, they have a pretty decent offensive line as well. And so with Dart being as elusive as he is, with being as accurate as he is, especially in the short passing game, I think Wandale gets a ton of targets, and they're utilizing him so well this season. It's been really nice to see. He's an auto start for me in this format. Rico in this format with 0.25 per rush. Yep, he's an auto start. And then I'm going Kincaid because we know the situation that's going on in Buffalo. We know that the Patriots are going to score with all those defensive injuries. We didn't really have a doubt, but I think this game is higher scoring than we expect. And Dalton Kincaid is going to be the recipient of that on the Buffalo side. Sitting Rome easily here. Scream, what is up? Thanks for joining. We have a flex situation. This sucks because the answer is probably Rico Dowdle. I will consult my rankings on this one. Kenneth Walker just does not score touchdowns. I don't know why that's the case. I do know why that's the case. Zach Charbonnet is the hammer back. He's a bigger body. He kind of deservedly earned that role, and he fits very nicely in that role. So this isn't anything that is relatively surprising. And Kenneth Walker has been fairly healthy throughout the entire season. He's playing in almost every single game, which is fantastic. This is something that we've been concerned with Kenneth Walker throughout the last couple of seasons. So you can understand, every single game. Now he's had some weird snap shares in there, but they're keeping him hovering around 50 to 60%. Now his snap share has gone up since the bye. So since week 9, that's 6 games, he's hovering more so in the 55, 60% range than he was earlier in the season, where he was like 45, 50%. But he's healthy, and this is what the team wants to do, right? If they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to try to make a run. They need everybody healthy, especially their best back. And you know how they do that? By slamming Zach Walker into the pile in short yardage and goal line situations. So it sucks for fantasy because we have an excellent back in Kenneth Walker, but listen to his finishes in full PPR. Full PPR, mind you, where he's averaging 3 targets a game in the last 6 weeks. He's he's running back 27, 35, 9, 17, 33, 49. The question is he going to score a touchdown? I'm a little skeptical. DeForest Buckner, I'm not sure about his status. They did open his window, but I think he's out again. I'll double check that before we sign off here. But you can check that out real quick, Scream. See if DeForest Buckner is playing. I'm going Rico Dowdle. I just don't trust Kenneth Walker to score the touchdown. We know Rico is going to get the volume. Now, Chuba Hubbard ate in a lot right before the bye. But I think part of that was out of necessity, trying to keep Dowdle healthy with a week off. These guys are fully healthy. And here's Dowdle's carry totals over the last 5 weeks: 25, 18, 19, a weird one for 6, and then 18. He's also getting volume through the air. I think this team works well with both backs involved, both Rico and Chuba. But Rico has proven that he's the ground and pound guy. It's like the Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet situation. If Zach Charbonnet were playing the Kenneth Walker role and getting red zone work. So Rico has the better role. He's also got the better matchup this week. Similar matchup between New Orleans and Indy. I'm going Rico here. It's a rough one, though. I get it. Appreciate you. Happy holidays to you, sir. Seattle's defense or Houston defense. Now, this is a situation where you wish you could start them both. They've been awesome, but you can only start one. I'm leaning Houston, but let's see. Oh, I got Seattle at 1, Houston at 2. With Phillip Rivers, I think you can lock in 3 sacks today. Lock it in. And that's kind of why I'm going to play Seattle over Houston. Now, can Houston do that to Jacoby Brissett? Absolutely. Do I think that Jacoby Brissett finishes as a QB1 like he has every single 7? It's either 7 or 8 games that he started this season. No, I don't think he finishes a QB1 for the first time this season in a game he started. And I think Houston goes off. I don't like Michael Wilson as a result. He's a back-end wide receiver 2 for me. You got to love the volume, but I'm fading Trey McBride. He's my tight end 7. Doesn't mean you don't play these guys. It's just you got to be careful. And still, I'm going Seattle's defense against Phillip Rivers and Indy. It's going to be a rough day at the office for both of those. But Scream, 2 good defenses to have. Dude, good luck. I think you're going to be happy with Rico. If Kenneth Walker finds the end zone, that's great. Happy for him. I will tell you, in his last 3 games played, he hasn't scored a touchdown. Oh, that's Rico. Rico in his last few games hasn't scored a touchdown. It's been rough for them, though. Kenneth Walker, I think it's in his it's worse for him. Let me give you that real quick. So Rico hasn't scored a touchdown in his last 3 games, but prior to that, I think he scored 3 in the 2 games. Kenneth Walker has scored 3 touchdowns on the season and just 1 in his last 10 games. So I think you got to go Rico, man. Good questions here. If you're just joining us, a quick recap of what we're talking about here while you are awaiting your playoff matchups to begin. First of which, and let me pull this back up, Rome Odunze will play. I'm probably not starting him. Parker Washington will play. I'm probably not starting him. It does worry me about the other Jaguars wide receivers and Brenton Strange specifically. But Parker Washington will play. I'm not playing. Amari DeMarcado will play. You probably weren't starting Bam Knight anyway. Hopefully not. You probably weren't starting Michael Carter if you're in the playoffs. But yeah, I'm not playing any of those guys. Josh Palmer will play. Gabe Davis is out. I don't care. That doesn't do anything for me. Cedric Tillman will play. I don't care. Debo Samuel will play. We're happy with that. We can plug him in the lineup. Back end wide receiver 2. Certain flex play for Debo. Inactives today. Guys, you need to get out of your lineups ASAP. They're not playing. Chris Rodriguez. We saw he was questionable a week. We didn't really expect it to get to this point, but it's gotten to this point. Chris Rodriguez will not play. JCM gets a little bump. Jeremy McNichols, I think, is sneakier than we like because he catches passes. JCM does not. Against the Giants, they're the second worst run defense, at least for fantasy running backs. That we love that for fantasy, but I do not know who to tell you to play. I know I can tell you to play Marcus Mariota, but I don't want to say McNichols or JCM. If you have to, sure. Quentin Johnston is out, and Trent McDuffie on the other side, one of the league's best corners, is out. That means you can probably fire up Keenan Allen. I'm not dying to squeeze him into my lineup, but if I have to, I feel a lot safer about that. And Rashad Bateman is out. It means Isaiah Likely, he bumped up my rankings the most as a result of that news. Zay Flowers can come up the rankings a little bit more. We're happy about Mark Andrews. All the pass catchers on the Ravens, because Bateman is out, shoot up a little bit in value against Cincinnati. You can play Derrick Henry. You could play Keaton Mitchell potentially, but I'll probably stay away from that. One other bit of news here we talked about at the top. Terrell Bernard, the middle linebacker for the Buffalo Bills, and Buffalo Bills corner Christian Benford are both out of this game. I'm way more comfortable than I already was at RB7 with Travion Henderson, but you can flex Ramondre if you have to. You can run all over the Bills, and now you really can. But Steph Diggs becomes even more interesting to me in another revenge game where he put up 10 for 146 back in week 5 when they faced them. And then this, absolutely, we did mention this at the top. Hunter Henry becomes all of a sudden very viable. I totally agree with this point from Mike. So, yeah, happy with all of those options. Drake May is also going to spike up a little bit for me. He was my QB6. I don't think I can move him up very much higher, but he was the QB 25 back in week 5 when these teams met. So, yeah, but this is a good development for this game. I would bet the over, which is just about 50 points right now. So, yeah, I do like both of these teams to score a ton. We'll answer all your questions that you pop in the chat here, so please feel free to do so. We'll get there with about 35 minutes left until game time. If you want to head over to TikTok and see what Jesse Moeller is talking about, just click that QR code. That will bring you right to our page. Click on the live, and then you can make sure to get your questions answered there as well. Appreciate you all joining us. Melp says start Kincaid or Jawan Johnson. All right, so we'll start there. I clearly have Kincaid over Jawan Johnson. I don't mind Jawan Johnson. We know he gets the volume. We know he's in an offense that will chuck the ball, but that Carolina defense is sneaky good, especially against mediocre to bad offenses. And that's what we're looking at in New Orleans. Now, I think Devin Neal is still he's fine. As a play. He's nothing top tier, but he should be fine. Juwan Johnson, Chris Olave scare me a little bit as well. I'm going Dalton Kincaid here. Like I just said, I think it's a shootout. I know that Pats defense is scary good, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot of weapons for Josh Allen. We know he spreads the ball around, but when Kincaid has been healthy, even with Dalton Knox getting a fair amount of volume last week, which was unexpected with Kincaid playing, when Kincaid's healthy, he's been good and he's been finding the end zone. I'm going Dalton Kincaid pretty clearly here. I don't think Juwan's a bad option. I just worry about his ability to score against that Carolina D. So we'll see. Vash, what is up? Thanks for joining first time. We appreciate you, my man. Please feel free to throw any and every question. Yeah, throw it in the chat. We'll get to you in a second, of course. 1 to 3 inches of snow in Foxborough. Yep. Juwan had the bonus of 500K. That's a fair fact right there. Does Tyler Shuck even know that that's the case and try to get it? Maybe Juwan's been in his ear for sure. Let's just pull up the target totals for Juwan. They've been good. All right. So I'm not going to completely crap on this. Um, but let's talk a little bit about it. First of all, we got Juwan. Target totals we know have been good really since week 7. It's been 7, 8, 4, 4, 7, 9, 4. Not terrible, not great, but he's only finished as a top 6 tight end one time. And he's only scored twice in the last 6 games, 3 times on the year. So that's really the concern. Is what you need to do is you need to have guys who find the end zone. We want to make sure that's the case. Volume is nice, but when you go 6 for 46, like Juwan Johnson did against Atlanta back in week 12, again, Atlanta, a very good defense at covering the tight end, but 6 for 46 only gets you to tight end 12, only gets you 10.6 PPR, full PPR points. Last week, 4 for 4 at 30. 4 targets, 4 receptions for 38 yards. The week before, 5 receptions, 39 yards. Against Miami and Tampa, that's really not going to cut it. So that's kind of why I have Kincaid ahead, is because Juwan Johnson just hasn't been doing it. The Carolina defense has been steadily getting better and steadily getting healthier. J.C. Horn also has been pretty good, but Mike Jackson on the other side has been good as well. So I hear you about the incentive, but let me tell you what Dalton Kincaid's been doing this season, because I'm not saying this to you, but just in general, if a person hasn't been paying attention, when Kincaid's out there, he looks damn good. Kincaid has 5 touchdowns on the season, but he's only played 9 games. Okay. Also, he's got target totals. His target average is roughly 6. He came back from injury, immediately saw 5 targets last week. Was the tight end 8 because he scored, was utilized in the red zone. So 4 for 40 and 1 is really what we're looking for. And look, I get it was against Cincinnati and Dawson Knox had the other bit going, but New England, this is kind of a must score game. Like I said, Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford out on the defensive side for Buffalo, already a bad defense. Now they're going to be reeling. New England's going to score at will, I think, in this game. And that's going to make Dalton Kincaid even more viable in the pass game. I'm going Dalton Kincaid pretty clearly over Juwan. I do understand it. Knox also has the bonus. Hey, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to play Juwan Johnson over Kincaid, I hear you. I'm not doing it. Z, what is up? QB. Oh, I think I missed a question, actually. Yep. I missed you, Mel. Real quick. The second half of this was Aaron Jones, Devin Neal, Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is my pick, but I had him a little bit higher up before the news that Parker Washington will play. I think that limits Jacoby Myers' volume, but it probably doesn't limit his usage in the red zone. The thing is, we got BTJ, we got Brenton Strange, and we got a very, very winnable game here against the Jets, where it may just be they're rushing the crap out of the ball in the second half. So I would love to say Myers. He's probably Devin Neal is your floor, is your like super safe floor play against Carolina. It worries me a little bit, but like I said, I do like him a little more than Juwan Johnson. I would say this is really close. I'll say Jacoby, but there's a lot of mouths there all of a sudden. Devin Neal feels safer to me. Do with that what you will. All right. We're going to go to Z right here. Herbert or Lawrence this week? It's a good question, especially with Trent McDuffie now out. That kind of changes the landscape for what the Kansas City defense is going to be able to do. And Kansas City, as we know, if they lose this game, they're practically eliminated from the playoffs. It's something like a 2% chance. It's single-digit percent chance for sure for them to make the playoffs if they lose this divisional matchup. So they have every incentive to do it, but Trent McDuffie is on the pine. He won't suit up. I don't know what to do with Justin Herbert. Right now, he's my QB 22. It feels too low. I'm going to move him up to QB 20. But then you get in the mix of like, is it Herbert or Brissett against Houston, who's Brissett's been awesome? Is it Herbert or CJ Stroud? We saw what happened to Herbert last week. You know, he did his best. He's still feeling that issue with his hand, but he looked decent. But Trevor Lawrence is my QB9 in this matchup. Like I said, I think this game blows out pretty quickly. I think by the second half, Trevor Lawrence is handing the ball off more, but I think that's a result of him throwing at least 2 touchdown passes, and he should get there on the ground. And the Jets defense is not terrible, but this Jags offense has been humming, and their defense has been fantastic. So I will go Trevor Lawrence, even though Herbert might need to keep up. with Pat Mahomes. That's kind of the only situation that I see here. But that offensive line in Los Angeles is decimated, and the deep threat is gone, right? QJ is out for this game. So what the hell are they going to do? I don't know, but I'll tell you what Steve Spagnuolo is going to do. He's going to push the entire defense up. He's going to stack the box against Marion Hampton and Vidal. He's going to look for the short crossers. He's going to look for the screens. He's going to look for everything in short, and that's going to limit the crap out of this Los Angeles Chargers offense. So I am really concerned about Herbert in this offense. If you can't tell by my rankings, Trevor Lawrence, I have him 11 spots higher than Herbert this week. Pick 1. Hampton, Adonai, Tracy, Strange. I would have told you Brenton Strange previously, but with Parker Washington back and, of course, occupying the middle of the field as he does, it does leave me a little less bullish on Strange this week. Tyrone Tracy is probably my pick. I mean, I think Devin Singletary's been seeing a fair amount of volume, but Tyrone Tracy has as well. And this team has realized that if they want to keep games close, if they want to win, they can they can rely on their offensive line, get the run game going. They also want to protect Jackson Dart, right? He only ran 4 times for 20 yards in his first game back from concussion number 17, but documenting concussion number 2, I guess, when he returned last week. Marion Hampton in that matchup we talked about. I'm concerned about his volume, but he could score the touchdown. I do have Hampton ranked 3 spots higher, but I feel like Tracy could be the play. Adonai Mitchell with Brady Cook against the Jags defense is just a no for me. I'm completely avoiding him. And Strange feels like he may not see the volume that we need him to get there. So if we're playing the touchdown game, who's most likely to score a touchdown? I'll go Hampton, then Tracy, then Strange. And I'll probably play Omarion Hampton, though Tyrone Tracy is there. It's nice that you only have to pick one of these guys. Go with Hampton. He looks fantastic. I know Vidal eats in. I could see Tyrone Tracy, though, against a horrible Washington Redskins defense. It's between those two for me. It's really, really close. Flex 1, Untamed, what is up? Flex one of these guys, 12 team, full PPR worthy. Kelsey, Kanon, Pollard, Jennings. It's going to be Juwan Jennings for me. Pollard looked great last week. I think he's the opportunity to look good again. Kenneth Walker has a decent matchup, but of course the Indy front is a little bit scarier than the Indy back end. And look, if this game does blow out, we know that Seattle's more likely to run the crap out of Zach Charbonnet than they are for Kenneth Walker because of concerns about his health, which has pushed into the beginning of this year as well. Don't forget, Kelsey, I think, has a pretty nice game. Worthy is inconsistent for me, so it's clearly Jennings as the one. And then it's a question between Pollard and Kelsey for me at the 2. But I'll just go Juwan Jennings against the Tennessee Titans. Nobody's scared of that matchup. Brock Purdy is feeling good. Christian McCaffrey is questionable for this game. I don't know what the situation is there, and I think they're a later game, so we don't have clarity on that. You might want to check that if you have Christian McCaffrey. At the same time, if Christian McCaffrey is out, Juwan Jennings is a smash play. But, even potentially being a little bit limited because of whatever he's dealing with, I think Juwan Jennings is the play here. He is my wide receiver 20 on the week. No problem. Thank you, sir. Vash, back again. What do you got? Strange, Warren, likely. Yeah. Projected to lose in the first round. So here's what I'm doing if I'm projected to lose. I'm playing Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely right now is my tight end 9 on the week. But he's got the most upside here to catch potentially 2 touchdowns. I don't think Jaylen Warren runs in 2 touchdowns against Miami. The defense is beatable for sure. And I do think Pittsburgh is very likely to win this game. But I don't think Jaylen Warren is going to get it done on his own. We know Kenny Gainwell eats in. We know he breaks bigger plays than Jaylen Warren does. And Brenton Strange catching 2 touchdowns is possible, but unlikely. So what you need is high upside. I could see Isaiah Likely, more so than these guys, giving you 100 total yards and 2 touchdowns. He is the ceiling play. So if you're projected to lose, that's who I'm playing this week. Hampton in your flex, yeah, this is a concern. Look, he could score. He could score twice. The KC defense is beatable, but you got Chris Jones, you got Nick Bolton. They're healthy. You got Cook in the back end. These guys can all defend the run very well. But I'm not playing Stranger Warren over him. I'll roll with Hampton in the flex. but then I'll go likely. If it's between likely and Hampton and I'm projected to lose, I'll throw likely in there and I'll pray. Against Cincinnati, keep this in mind. Cincinnati is the best by a mile. We're talking by 6 fantasy points per game. The best tight end matchup for you. So Mark Andrews should have a good game, but hey, maybe it's not Mark Andrews. Maybe Mark Andrews is blocking a little bit more to protect Lamar Jackson a little bit more. Maybe Isaiah Likely absolutely goes off, catches those touchdowns, a little regression for you where he catches those touchdowns that he's dropped the last 2 weeks. It's possible. But like I said, when you are projected to lose and you're thinking that you need upside, you got to go with the guy who can give you the upside. That's going to be Likely. That's going to be Hampton compared to Warren and Strange for me. BTJ or Rico? We answer the tough questions here. This is a tough question. With Parker Washington back, I'll lean Rico. I'm not excited about Rico. Chuba Hubbard, of course, ate in last week, especially in the pass game, but Rico still saw plenty of volume both as a runner and as a receiver. I think he's going to see that volume again, and that's what I'm banking on. Parker Washington is no stranger to a ton of targets, and his return potentially limits BTJ. Does it absolutely limit him? No. Could BTJ be the number 1 wide receiver on this team against the New York Jets team that cannot cover on the outside? Yes. I'm just not banking on it. Rico has the safer floor. Does he have the higher ceiling? No. But it depends what you need, Frosty. If you're in a situation like Vash's where he's projected to lose and he needs a ceiling play, I'm going Brian Thomas Jr. But if it's a neutral game script, there's only a couple points difference between you and your opponent, or you are kind of projected to win and you feel safe about it, I'm plugging in Rico as my RB2 or my flex, and I'm taking the 10 to 12 points floor and then hoping for more. Guys, once again, we're the Fantasy Football Universe. If you haven't seen us all year, we are here every single week to give you the start to sit decisions to help you win your leagues. We need a win this year, this week, so we can progress through the fantasy playoffs in round 1. If you haven't been here before, please follow us. It really helps. If you appreciate this content, it helps us a ton. We're also over on TikTok. Jesse Moeller of the FFU is over there right now answering questions. If you got your question answered here, feel free to go over there and see if you can get any insight from Jesse as well. Always helps to have multiple sources of information, and that man knows his ball. So get your questions answered from Jesse. I'll gotta warn you though, over there, the comments and the chat gets a little crazy. That's good though, because Jesse ends up talking about a ton of guys. And while you're over there, if you don't mind throwing us a follow there as well, trying to grow the channels, trying to grow everything for year 3, which will be coming up after this offseason. Year 2 so far going well. So appreciate you all joining us. Jennifer, what is up? Jennifer's Sons. Looks like what is going on? Ravens or Bengals this week? I'm assuming that's a defensive question. Let's go have a look. When we're talking about offenses, let's see. In the same game. All right. So first of all, let's talk about who I think is going to win this game. I think it's a Ravens game. I think their defense is going to show up a little bit more. We know the Bengals defense is physically incapable of showing up. I know it's in Cincinnati, but I'm a little concerned about this situation for the Bengals. Joe Burrow came out with his comments. He seems very concerned. We got no T. Higgins in this game. I think the Ravens take this one, but I do see more of a shootout than we saw a couple of weeks ago. I think Zay Flowers is more involved. So that's how I think this game goes. Let's take a look at these defenses here and see what we're talking about. The Baltimore Ravens are my defense number 18 because they are not at home, but they're far superior to the Cincy defense all the way down at 26. I think Lamar is a week healthier. I think we see him scramble. I think we have lots of things to like about this Ravens offense and lots of things to hate about this Bengals defense. You got to go Ravens D. Individual players, you got to take Jamar Chase at 1. You got to take Derrick Henry at 2. I mean, these running backs should be heavily involved. But then the pass game is going to get involved. You're definitely firing up Jamar Chase. You're firing up Zay Flowers, despite what happened to him 2 weeks ago in this same matchup. You fire him up again. And then the tight ends, the Ravens tight ends, Andrews and Likely are massive plays for you this week. Flex them if you got them. They should have a great game. Cat for Life, what's up? Thank you first of all, Jennifer Sons, thank you. Appreciate you joining. If you appreciate this, like and follow here for more. Capped for Life says, ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Jaden Higgins of Brees Hall. Yuck. As the lights went out on me, let's see what we got here. Jaden Higgins of Brees Hall. Brees Hall is a concern against the Jags defense. In fact, I'm going to give you the stats on this one. The Jags have given up the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. That is scary, scary business for Brees Hall. It's the reason you're asking this question. So I totally understand that. Conversely, what are we looking at with Jaden Higgins? We need him to score a touchdown. He's only done that 3 of the last 7 games. So that's really the concern for him. I'm going to pull up his stats right now. But he's looked good. Like, he's a viable NFL wide receiver. As a rookie, he's got room to grow. I like him and his prospect. But here's what he's done in the last 5 weeks: 7, 7, 9, 5, and 5 targets. And that's been really good. But like I said, just 3 touchdowns in his last 7 games. That's a good mark for him. And against Arizona, I'm certainly not scared of him. Will Johnson will be covering Nico Collins and concerned about that. But I just can't bank on that volume. The one thing I'm going to tell you about Brees Hall is, even though the matchup is bad, there's nobody else. Mason Taylor is out of this game. I know it's Brady Cook, but he's going to check down. They're going to utilize Brees Hall in the receiving game. Adonai Mitchell is a concern. John Mechie is a concern. I'm not playing any of these guys. I will play Brees Hall. And when it comes to a guy like Jaden Higgins, I'm rolling with Brees Hall this week. Sucks, but good luck, man. Burner, what is up? Hampton or JCM at RB2. I'm going Hampton, man. JCM, I can't trust him. I did bump him up, obviously, with the Chris Rodriguez out news. JCM is hovering around RB30 for me. Hampton's still 22. I know it's a tough matchup. I know we talked about this a few minutes ago, where I expect Steve Spagnuolo to fully, with QJ out, to fully push up that defense and really just take everything away underneath. That includes the short passing game, but also the run game. And this offensive line in LA is awful. And they're just so hurt. But I'm not playing JC. And I know the Giants are great, but the one thing I'll say is that Big Bill doesn't catch the football, right? That's going to be Jeremy McNichols. In fact, they've proven that they don't want Bill to really touch the football as much as he had been. He had fumbling issues earlier on. They full on went to Chris Rodriguez. And then Jeremy McNichols is the passing volume guy. So if McNichols takes over the majority workload and becomes the Chris Rodriguez, I wouldn't be surprised here. JCM has to be active, of course, but is he going to be the lead back? I doubt that. I'm going Hampton by a lot. Goddard or Likely. Yeah, I faded Goddard. I get it. He can catch a touchdown, but we got snowy conditions. We got an easy matchup. So does he get there early? I don't know. But the thing about Vegas is they're actually very stingy against tight ends. Let me give you those numbers real quick. Surprisingly so. They are the 4th worst matchup for fantasy tight ends, giving up just 7 points per game to the position. Dallas Goedert, we know if he doesn't score a touchdown, is a problem for you now. He's been getting some utilization here and there in terms of volume between the 20s. But Isaiah Likely, in the best possible matchup for tight ends, we saw him go off 2 weeks ago, but drop the touchdown at the goal line. We saw him go off last week, but drop the touchdown because he didn't take 4 steps instead of 3. Isaiah Likely is, between the two of these, is more likely to catch a touchdown. He's got a higher upside. He's the guy that I want by a lot here, Burner. Play Isaiah Likely. Don't think twice. Damn, Gav. That's a rough one. I want the answer to be Debo. Let's talk about it. So first of all, Debo Samuel is playing in a very advantageous matchup against the New York Giants. Terry McLaurin is there, so he's going to take some volume. And of course, we have Marcus Mariota, but Mariota's been utilizing Debo a lot more. And even when it was Zach Ertz was playing, Marcus Mariota threw 0 touchdowns to Zach Ertz. So I don't expect him to fully utilize the tight end, especially in the red zone. He was hit and miss in terms of the number of targets that he saw weekly from Mariota. That's Ertz. Debo the same way, but I feel like Washington wants to win this game. It's an in-division game. Debo Samuel healthy and ready to go. I know he's not fully healthy because he was questionable leading up to game time, but I'm still rolling with Debo here. One thing I'll say about Keenan Allen is we know Trent McDuffie is out. We know QJ is out. So Keenan Allen becomes automatically viable. The question I'm asking myself is, who do I think is more likely to score a touchdown? Debo against the Giants or Keenan Allen against Kansas City? With no field stretching ability, I think Keenan Allen gets blanketed. You can double him. You can probably double him in Gadsden and still get away with it. with a 4-man pass rush against that horrible, horrible Los Angeles Chargers offensive line. I think Keenan suffers. We know Kansas City wants to win this game regardless. If Kansas City loses this game to the in-division Chargers, they have a single-digit chance to make the playoffs, percentage-wise. If they win this game, their percentages skyrocket to like 20% or something like that. So they don't really have a chance, Kansas City, but their chances stay alive with a win. I think they blow out all the stops this week. I think the Chargers are in trouble. Justin Herbert is my QB 20. Keenan Allen, I haven't moved him up after the QJ news. Deebo Samuel is firmly a back-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 for me. I'm going Deebo by a fair amount. If you have any other questions here for start sit for week 15, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, you can run over here to TikTok with about 15 minutes left. Just click the QR code, go see what Jesse Moeller is talking about. We usually have a ton of questions over there. And if you appreciate this content, we would appreciate you not only liking and sharing, but also following along. That helps this channel grow. And that's really what we're all about and trying to do here in year 2 of the fantasy football universe. When I talk about my rankings, my name is Jeremy Schulman. You can find all of my rankings on Fantasy Pros as part of the Expert Consensus Rankings. That's available for you there. In fact, I will update what I've just changed here in the last few minutes, just so they're up to date. And if you have any questions, please feel free to consult those, ask here, do what you need to do. Also, and I see your question here. I don't even have a name. I see the question from Twitter. Give me 13 seconds here because I just want to drop the Discord link in our chat. If you want to join our Discord, please feel free to do so. You will get questions answered 24/7. I'm over here in Amsterdam. That's why it's dark outside. But we got guys, Jesse's over in Seattle on the West Coast. Between all of us in the fantasy football universe, we're all over the globe. We're literally 24/7 in that Discord for any questions you need answered. Like this one, Goddard, Andrews, Reed, Higgins. Who's Jay Reed? I'm assuming that's Jaden Reed, spelled with 2 E's, or Jaden Higgins. I need you, my man. I need you to start Andrews very, very easily here in the best possible matchup against Cincinnati. Mark Andrews is probably a better bet to score 2 touchdowns than he is to score 0 touchdowns in this game against Cincinnati. Give me Andrews by a ton. And then I will go, I think Jaden Reed has a good game here. I think, Christian Watson, who's looked awesome, who's helped to elevate Jordan Love and his stats throughout his run here over the last 5-6 weeks, gets Pat Surtain. We don't love that. I think Christian Watson is still an okay play, but it does mean that Love is going to have to look elsewhere, and looking at Jaden Reed should be a good option for him. I think the volume's there. That said, I don't think he really has the opportunity to score a touchdown as much as Jaden Higgins does. We talked about Higgins, 3 touchdowns in his last 7 games. I have him actually pulled up here because we were talking about him a few minutes ago. And against Arizona, I don't think they're going to need Higgins. They can probably lean on Woody Marks, but no Nick Chubb. So they're going to have to probably utilize the run game a little bit more. We'll see some Dare Ogunbowale for sure. But I'm going Jaden Higgins over Jaden Reed by a little bit. That one's kind of flip a coin territory, but that's what I'm doing. Once again, copy and paste that link and join our Discord to jump in for any and every questions that you need answered here ahead of week 15 and beyond. Let's take a look at my rankings and just a couple of names while I await any further questions. Christian McCaffrey is questionable in the afternoon. Just keep an eye on that. He's got some sort of back injury. He was a late addition to the injury report. This was yesterday, and they have the late game. So if you have Brian Robinson, he's interesting. Hopefully you have Brian Robinson on top of Christian McCaffrey. That's something that you need to just pay attention to. And I see your question in the chat, Oscar. Give me 30 seconds and I'll jump right to it. Other names that you need to be kind of aware of for this week, Devontae Adams, I think he absolutely crushes. He's also questionable, but he's expected to play. He's a massive play, even after a down week last week. We talked about the Ravens tight ends a ton. You're firing them both up. Very, very happy with both of those guys. I have Andrews at 3 and likely at 9. Theo Johnson is a decent play. Dalton Kincaid is a decent play. Both of those guys inside my top 12. Jake Ferguson might not play. That's something to keep an eye on. You're firing up George Pickens again. I know he burned you. You have to go back to the George Pickens well. Even with Ferguson potentially, you know, limited or potentially playing, I'm still going George Pickens in a nice matchup. Yeah, but that's kind of where we sit. Also, Matthew Stafford, my quarterback 1, Jackson Dart, my quarterback 2. Let's jump back into these questions with about 10 minutes left. Oscar, you got Warren or Waller or Likely in half PPR. Half PPR, I got to go Warren here. Now, if I'm assuming that's Jalen Warren, but we got 2 other tight ends, so that could be Tyler Warren. I'm still going Warren here. Phillip Rivers is going to pepper this man with targets, and he's going to be open. The question is he going to score a touchdown? I don't know. Waller is the guy who's absolutely out of it for me. He certainly could have a good, decent game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm just not going there with these 2 other options. I've got Warren, I think, at 5 or 6 at tight end. I got Likely at 9. I love the matchup for Likely. I love the situation. I think he scores, but Tyler Warren against Seattle. Seattle has sneakily been allowing a ton to the tight end position. We saw Kyle Pitts go off for the first time really last week. Well, guess who he was playing? Seattle. He was also ranked very highly because he was playing Seattle, because Seattle gives up a ton to the tight end position. In fact, let me give you some numbers here. They're giving up the 5th most points to fantasy tight ends, and they are just 0.6 points away from giving up the 2nd most points to fantasy tight ends. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers give it up too. I get it. They're right up there at 7th most. But Waller for me, he had a down week. Greg Dulcich was super involved last week, so that's a scary one for me. Cincinnati Bengals, of course, are giving up the most by a ton, by a full 7 fantasy points. It's unreal. So I like Warren on volume. If Likely were the number 1, he'd be my number 1 option, but it could just be a Mark Andrews gets 2 touchdowns kind of a game, and then they run the ball out. I'll go Warren first, but then Likely. If you can flex Isaiah Likely, it's a great week to do so. Waller, not a bad option, but I'm not doing it. Yeah, so I'm going Andrews over Likely here. I get it. Mark Andrews could be utilized a little bit more as a blocker. He could see kind of those lower average depth of target situations that we don't like to see. But in the red zone, I think it's Andrews. Look, he's also going to see the coverage. We saw this play out 2 weeks ago, but Andrew also had a massive game against Cincy. So I'm still going Mark Andrews. I think he's the lock to have a great game. I think Likely can also have a great game alongside him. He could also eclipse Mark Andrews. I get it. But Andrews is not only safer, but I feel like has the higher upside, assuming he's healthy. Oscar, one more. He's got Hampton or Wilson. Look, man, Wilson was sick. He was put on the injury report. He's questionable. Even if Josh Jacobs goes, which I don't know if this is finalized yet, because I think these guys are playing a little bit later. Let me just double check here. What the heck is Green Bay even playing? Of course, I cannot find it. Unreal. Oh, Denver. Yeah, and they're playing the later game here. So that's my concern about it, is we're not totally going to know. I'm not plugging in Emmanuel Wilson anywhere. He had the illness. He's very unlikely to play. He might play, but then again, Josh Jacobs might play. We don't know the situation here. Where they also, Green Bay also elevated Pierre Strong from the practice squad yesterday to mitigate the Jacobs-Wilson situation. So who the hell knows what's going on? I'm going Hampton pretty easily here. Yeah, and that's really the question. Hampton has the safe floor for you, but I feel like it's a floor. He could score a touchdown here, and then you're happy with what he's giving you. Isaiah Likely is the riskier bet, but he does have the higher ceiling in this game against Cincy, as we've been talking about all show. That's a real tricky one. That's kind of a flip a coin situation. I think in most cases, Oscar, I'm playing Hampton unless I'm down bad and I'm like the 6 seed playing the 3 seed who's expected to dominate me by 30 points. In that case, I'll play Isaiah Likely. Otherwise, I'm going Hampton and just hoping he gets in the end zone multiple times, which is absolutely possible. I think he may have the best day of any Los Angeles Charger for whatever that's worth in a game where KC should dominate on the defensive side. So we'll see. All right, guys, we got about 5 minutes left. Of course, this is the Fantasy Football Universe. You can join us here. Please like and follow if you appreciate this content. Head over to TikTok. Do the same over there. Jesse Muller's there for a few more minutes answering questions. Feel free to follow us if you appreciate this content that we're giving you here. We got 5 minutes left. There's no questions in the chat, so if you throw it in there, I'll make sure I answer it very quickly. As I await that, I'll just give you a couple of other names, guys who I'm feeling and not feeling this week. Hunter Henry, I'm going to move him up a couple of spots, of course, with the news that Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford are out. He will now be over Colby Parkinson as my tight end 15. He won't be over Dalton Kincaid in the same game, but it will be close. So just keep that in mind. Oscar says against Bijan. Yeah, I get it. You might want to go likely in that case. Good luck, my man. Other things of note, Harold Fannin, my tight end 2 on the week. He's just over Mark Andrews. He's just so much of a focal point in that offense. We also have snow issues or weather issues in the game, extreme cold. I think that's going to limit the average depth of target that we see. And Harold Fannin does catch it deep down the middle of the field, but also in close and can run it. His yak, I think, is the best of any tight end. At least it was a couple of weeks ago. I think that's still the case for him this season. Justin Jefferson, my wide receiver 16 against Dallas. He had the second best possible matchup for fantasy wide receivers last week and threw up a dud for you. But in the fantasy playoffs, he's got the best possible matchup for you. You hope JJ McCarthy can find him a couple of times. He didn't last week. I get it. We're concerned about it. He should still have a good game. It's all there for him. You've got Justin Jefferson on your team. You got to fire him up. You just have to. Chris Olave is a guy I'm worried about. I do have him at wide receiver 18, but keep this in mind with Chris Olave versus Carolina. Last time the two of them played, Chris Olave caught a 45-yard touchdown pass where J.C. Horn fell down. If he doesn't catch that pass, he goes 4 for 40, and you're not very happy. Odunze or Higgins? I'm going Higgins. I can't trust Rome Odunze. He could have a good game here. But against Cleveland, on a team that wants to run the football with the least accurate passer in the NFL as a starting quarterback in Caleb Williams, I'm going Jaden Higgins pretty clearly here over big Rome Odunze. I get it. Yeah, T. Higgins is not even playing, so it's definitely Jaden. You just hope on a touchdown. Rome Odunze hasn't done that since week 5. Maybe he did it once. I don't know. Jaden Higgins 3 in his last 7. Yep. So here's an interesting one. Rome Odunze is ruled out. Initially, he was active. He is now ruled out after aggravating his foot injury in pre-game warmups. Get him out of your lineup. Go Jaden Higgins. Good question. Get Rome Odunze out of your lineups. Do it now. In fact, I have to see if I have Rome in any of my lineups. Thankfully, I have a fair amount of buys and a fair amount of teams that didn't make the playoffs. So I only have, let's see. I did pretty well on my bye weeks. 8 bye weeks this week, but do I have any Rome Odunze? I don't think I do. No, I think I'm good. I think I sat him where I had him. Where would I have him? Here? Crap. I'm going to look for that. Throw your questions in the chat if you have any other ones while I look for Rome Odunze in my lineups. You got to get him out of there. He was ruled out with a foot injury in pre-game warmups. That is rough. Let's see. Contenders and Debbie Dynamo. So I do have him in 2 games that are going now. Number 1, let's get him. I don't think he was in to begin with because this is a pretty solid squad. Yep, he's out. And number 2, this one with Rodriguez out. I might have plugged him in. I did not. Yep, Rome Odunze out last minute with a foot injury. Get him out of your lineups. But that's going to do it for us today. We appreciate you joining us. If you appreciate this content, we appreciate you following us here on YouTube, following us on Twitter, and of course, following us over on TikTok. If you haven't been over there, head over there. We're live damn near every single day on that platform, giving you start sit information, trade information, certainly earlier in the season, waiver wire claims, etc., and posting short videos there. So thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in your week 15 playoff matchups. We'll see you all next week as you advance, just like we will. Bye.
FFU. FFU.